husband, said he was on a work trip. Then his missing luggage showed up at her apartment. I woke up to my phone buzzing at 2 a. Zrania jarring me out of a deep sleep. I'm not usually the kind of person who answers calls from unknown numbers, especially not in the middle of the night. But something about that moment felt urgent. The screen glowed with a random local number I didn't recognize. My first thought was that it might be an emergency. Maybe someone in my family needed help. Heart pounding, I picked up. "Hi, is this Beth?" a woman asked, sounding awkwardly apologetic. "I'm so sorry to bother you at this hour, but I think I have your husband's suitcase here." Ots? For a second, I couldn't understand what she was talking about. "My husband's suitcase?" I repeated, half asleep and confused. "He's out of town for work. The airline lost his luggage." That was the story he'd given me. He flew to Seattle for a short project, and apparently his bag disappeared somewhere between connecting flights. "Well, that's what the luggage tag says," the woman replied. "But it got delivered to my apartment in San Francisco. My name is Tracy. I found your number inside the front pocket along with Mark's ID. I wasn't sure what else to do, so I called." Everything in me lurched awake. Mark was supposed to be in Seattle, not that far from home, but definitely nowhere near some random woman named Tracy. And why would his bag be delivered to her? The airline was supposed to be hunting it down, rerouting it back to our house in Sacramento. We'd been texting about it off and on for the last 3 days, and Mark had sounded understandably stressed. "I'll have to pick up a change of clothes," he'd said. "I can't show up to this conference in the same shirt from yesterday." So I tried to remain calm, though my pulse was hammering in my ears. "I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused," I told Tracy. "Are you sure it's Mark's bag? Like, did you see his name?" "Yes, it's definitely his. I checked the name tag, and that's how I got your number. This is your husband, Mark S. Zrania, right?" She read out his last name. "I also see his business cards in a side pocket. He's in software sales?" My heart sank. That was absolutely him. "Right," I managed. "I thank you for calling. I'm just so confused about why it ended up with you. Did the airline give you any clue?" She gave a short, nervous laugh. "They just showed up this evening with a delivery address under my name. I'm guessing there was a label mix-up, but I wanted to get in touch so we could figure this out." I thanked her, promised to call back when I could think more clearly, and ended the conversation. My hands were shaking, though. A label mix-up. Could it really just be that? The airline found Mark's missing luggage, stuck the wrong label on it, and dropped it off to some random woman? I tried calling Mark's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I fired off a text. "Hey, we need to talk now. Your missing suitcase showed up at some woman's place in SF?" All night, I tossed and turned, rereading Tracy's text with her address and phone number. He'd told me he was staying at a Marriott in downtown Seattle. He was supposed to be in meetings all day with a big corporate client. Why wasn't he picking up? Probably because it was 2 in the morning. But if he knew his suitcase had been found, wouldn't he want to be alerted? I woke up again at 6, still no answer from Mark. Feeling restless, I got ready for work. But my mind was a spiral of questions. By 9, I tried him another 6 times, each attempt going straight to voicemail. I left him messages that grew increasingly agitated. Finally, around noon, he called back. "Beth," he said, sounding harried. "What's going on?" I overslept and my phone was off. Something about my suitcase being delivered to the wrong address? I had the conversation on speaker in my car. "Yeah, apparently some lady named Tracy in San Francisco has it. Do you know her?" He paused just a split second too long. "No," he said, but his tone sounded off. "That must be a glitch in the airline system." I told them to send it to our home address. "How did it end up there?" "That's what I'm wondering," I shot back. I got woken up at 2 in the morning because she tracked me down. She's as confused as I am. Mark cleared his throat. "I'll handle it," he said, adopting a calm, authoritative voice. "Let me talk to the airline. Sorry you got dragged into this. Must be some incompetent courier situation." I wanted to believe that, but a gnawing pit had formed in my stomach. He sounded a little too composed. "Are you sure you've never heard of her?" I asked. "It's just weird that your suitcase ended up in San Francisco with a random person instead of being sent back here." "What?" He made a dismissive noise. "I promise, I have no idea who she is. This must be some bizarre mix-up. Let me call the airline and I'll get back to you." Mew. So I waited, but he didn't call me back until late evening. Meanwhile, I was stewing in suspicion. I tried to focus on my job at the design agency where I'd been working for the past year. But the mystery overshadowed everything. Around 5, I stepped out to a coffee shop with my best friend Rebecca to vent. She's known Mark and me since our college days, and normally we're all pretty close. "This is really strange," Rebecca said, nibbling on a scone. "Airlines do mess up addresses, but having it delivered to someone named Tracy, you think it's a total coincidence?" I shrugged. feeling exhausted. I want to believe it's just a mistake. But something feels off. Mark was so weird on the phone. Like he was in a hurry to shut me down. Rebecca lowered her voice sympathetically. Maybe wait to see what he finds out. But keep your eyes open, okay? I nodded, appreciating her support but hating the swirl of doubt in my mind. A year ago, I never would have suspected Mark of anything shady. We've been married nearly 6 years, and while we've had normal ups and downs, I've always trusted him. He's the calm, methodical one. He loves routine. He's never been the type to do anything dramatic or sneaky. Or so I believed. That night, Mark finally called and launched into a spiel about how he spent an hour on hold with the airline. He claimed they confirmed they'd shipped his bag to the address he originally gave them, which was supposed to be ours. Must be a labeling error, he concluded. They apologized for the confusion. Apparently, the label had someone else's name and phone number. They said they'd send a courier to retrieve it from that woman's place. But I pressed my phone to my ear sitting on our couch. They told you that? Because Tracy said the label was specifically addressed to her. She's the one who signed for it. Did they explain that? He gave a vague answer about how these mistakes can happen, then tried to steer the conversation to something else. His day, his meetings, his flight home. I'm flying back tomorrow night, he said. This is all going to be resolved soon, okay? Don't stress. So I wanted to feel relief, but I hung up unsettled. Something about his tone put me on edge. The next day passed in a blur until around 3 p. Mili Izrinya, I got an unexpected call from the airline itself. The agent politely asked if I could confirm the correct address for Mr. Mark S.'s luggage since he placed a special request for an alternate shipping location. My heart practically stopped. Special request? He gave us an address in San Francisco, the agent said. That was the address Tracy had. I thanked the agent and ended the call, my hands shaking. So Mark had asked them to ship it there. He'd specifically arranged for that, which meant his entire story about a labeling error was a bold-faced lie. Bile rose in my throat. My mind flashed to the possibility that he was seeing someone else, that maybe Tracy was more than a random stranger. Was she his mistress, or a friend who was covering for him? I tried calling Mark, but again, straight to voicemail. Furious, I decided to call Tracy back. She answered on the second ring, sounding polite but guarded. I asked her to confirm how she'd gotten the bag. She repeated the same story, that a courier arrived with Mark's name and her address. My chest tightened with every word. Tracy, I said slowly. The airline told me Mark specifically requested the suitcase be sent there. Are you sure you don't know him personally? She hesitated. We, might have met briefly at an industry event, she admitted, voice quivering. Look, Beth, I'm not trying to be difficult. All I can say is that Mark told me he was traveling for work and needed a place to send his luggage. I thought it was weird, but I agreed as a favor. I wasn't expecting it to come so late, or that you'd be involved. My stomach dropped to my feet. So you do know each other? I asked you before, and you said you didn't really know him. Her sigh crackled over the phone. I'm sorry, but I didn't know how much he'd told you. I'm not proud of being in the middle of this. We met a couple of months ago through mutual acquaintances. He said he wasn't happy at home. I didn't realize he was married until it was too late, and then it got complicated. So the words hammered into my brain, each one a new shock. He told you he wasn't happy at home? I managed, feeling my eyes fill with tears. He never said he was married until recently, she insisted. He came off as a guy in a tough spot, needing a break, someone to talk to. I believed him. I didn't know if he planned to leave you or what, but he never wanted me to contact you. He said you'd be upset. Ooh, I felt lightheaded, as though the world had begun to tilt. My voice came out shaky. Tracy, do you realize I've been in the dark about this for months? I had no idea he was telling you these things. Mias. She gave a sorrowful sigh. I'm sorry. I didn't want any drama. After a while, I refused to keep seeing him and we ended things. But he told me he'd still occasionally send packages to my address so you wouldn't find out about his travels. He said it was strictly about business. I haven't seen him in person for a few weeks, though. My knees gave out. I had to sit, pressing my free hand to my mouth. She was basically confirming an affair, or at the very least a string of lies. What exactly happened between you two? I whispered. She paused. Look, I don't want to upset you more. We dated for a while. He said he was separated. Then I found out that wasn't true. I ended it, but I guess he was still using me as a cover. I'm so sorry. If I had known sooner, I wouldn't have let him use me like this. Yeah. I thanked her numbly, ended the call, and sat there in stunned disbelief. So Mark had orchestrated this entire charade. He'd told me his bag was missing while, in reality, He'd purposely had it shipped to Tracy's apartment. He'd lied about not knowing her, lied about the entire scenario. I felt sick. At that moment, the front door swung open and Mark walked in, home earlier than expected, carrying his laptop bag. He froze when he saw my expression. "Beth, hey," he began, forcing a smile. I managed to catch an earlier flight. I glared at him. "Really? Your phone's been off? Why is that?" He took a step forward. "I was on the plane and then it died." "What's the matter?" "You're asking me?" My voice trembled with anger. "You lied about your suitcase being delivered to the wrong address. I called the airline. They said you told them to ship it to Tracy in San Francisco. She confirmed you two have been seeing each other." His face went pale. "Beth, that's not how it sounds." "Let me explain." "Please do," I said, crossing my arms. My heart thudded. "Explain how you told me it was an airline mix-up when you actually arranged to have your bag sent to another woman's place. Explain how you claimed not to know her, yet she says you dated." He ran a hand through his hair, his mouth opening and closing. "Okay, yes, I know Tracy," he admitted, swallowing hard, "but it wasn't anything serious. We met through a friend and we hung out a bit. I was an idiot. I'm sorry. I just needed a break. Work has been stressful, our marriage." I cut him off, my eyes burning. "So your solution was to have an affair?" He groaned, rubbing his face. "It wasn't a full-blown affair, I swear. Well, we did see each other, but it wasn't about love. It was a stupid fling, a distraction. I never planned to leave you." I shook my head, tears threatening to spill. "But you did plan to lie to me. For months, apparently." My voice cracked. "You said you were going to Seattle for some big project. Did you even go there?" "I did," he said quickly. "The Seattle thing was real. I actually was there. But I realized my suitcase could show up while I was away, so I had them send it to Tracy's apartment. I didn't want you to ask why I'd packed some things. I knew it might raise questions." I stared at him, my anger flaring hot. "What, like if I found gifts for her? Or evidence you weren't where you said you'd be?" He tried to protest, but I cut him off again. "Don't. I'm not stupid. Tracy already admitted you told her we were having problems at home, that you said you were separated. Why the hell would you say that?" He looked miserable, stepping toward me. "Because I was bored with everything, okay?" I felt stuck. "That's no excuse, but it's the truth. She showed up at some work gathering. She was friendly. We started talking. It got out of hand. Bucks, my chest ached with betrayal. You lied to me over and over. You pretended your bag was lost just to cover up your relationship with her. Did you ever think about how humiliating this might be for me?" He swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "I know I've messed up. I swear I was going to stop before it blew up. I didn't think you'd find out this way." Stop?" My voice wavered. "Mark, I shouldn't have had to find out at all. If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me, or at least ended our marriage before messing around with someone else. Do you have any idea how betrayed I feel?" He nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I wanted to scream at him, fling something at the wall, anything to release the fury. But I also felt heartbreak, a sorrow so deep it left me shaking. After a long moment, I forced out the words. "Pack a bag and get out." "Whoa." He blinked, as if he couldn't believe it. "Beth, can we please—" "Go," I said, quieter this time, tears gathering in my eyes. "I need space. Just go." His face crumpled, and he started to say something else, but he saw the resolute look on my face. So he nodded, grabbed some clothes from the bedroom, and left without another word. The silence that followed was deafening. All I could do was sink onto the couch and stare at the floor, the weight of his betrayal pressing down on me. Our entire marriage, our 6 years of building a life, twisted by the knowledge that he'd decided to have a secret fling to spice up his routine. For the next few days, I barely ate or slept. I called in sick to work because I couldn't face anyone, not even my boss, who would obviously see that I was a wreck. My sister Dana came over with groceries and tried to coax me out of bed. "I can't believe Mark would do this," she said fiercely, handing me a mug of tea. "We all thought he was a decent guy." I let out a brittle laugh. So did I. Tears welled up again. "He just lied about everything." She squeezed my hand. "You know you don't have to talk to him if you don't want to. But also, if you want answers, you have every right to demand them." After some time passed, Mark started texting me. I ignored the first few, but eventually curiosity and anger drove me to read them. He was begging for forgiveness, blaming stress and confusion, claiming he still loved me. I wanted to believe him, or at least wanted to know why he'd gone to such lengths. Why not just speak up if he was miserable? Eventually, I relented and agreed to meet him at a nearby cafe, mostly for the chance to get closure. He looked terrible when he walked in. Dark circles under his eyes, hair unkempt. Part of me felt a pang of pity, but my resolve stayed strong. He sat down gingerly, like he wasn't sure if I'd flip the table. "Beth," he said quietly, "thank you for meeting me." Yes, I stared at him, noticing how shaky his hands were. "Just talk," I said, the harshness in my voice surprising me. "Explain how you could do this to me." "So," he exhaled, looking down at the tabletop. "I never wanted to wreck our marriage. I was just feeling stuck in life. My job was stressful, our routines felt stale, and I convinced myself I needed an escape. Tracy was there, showing me attention I hadn't felt in a while, and I got swept up. But I wasn't planning to keep it going. I told her I was going to end things. Then the suitcase fiasco happened, and everything blew up in my face." "Oh." He rubbed his hands over his eyes, voice unsteady. "I know I sound like a jerk. I am. You deserve so much better. I just wanted you to know that I'm not proud of it. I'm sorry." "Nah." My throat tightened as I remembered all the love we'd shared. The vacations, the inside jokes. It felt surreal to see him here, broken, when the real damage was done to me. "What now?" I asked quietly. "You can't expect me to just forget about this." He lifted his gaze, eyes filled with tears. "No, I don't. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. Couples therapy, living separately while we work on it, anything. I don't want to lose you." I shook my head, tears gathering. "You should have thought of that before. You humiliated me, made me second-guess everything I believed about our relationship. How can I ever trust you again?" He didn't have an answer for that. We left the cafe with no resolution, just a heavy sadness. Over the next week, Mark checked into a hotel and gave me space. Sometimes I found myself crying over the smallest things, like discovering the coffee mug he used every morning, or seeing a movie trailer for something we'd planned to watch together. It felt like being haunted by a ghost of our marriage. Rebecca dropped by one evening with takeout. We sat cross-legged on my living room floor, picking at the food and talking in hushed voices. I told her everything about the confrontation. "That's such a betrayal," Rebecca murmured. "And you have every right to be angry. But do you think you'll try therapy with him?" I stared at the half-eaten noodles. "I don't know. Part of me hates him right now, and another part still misses the life we had. I feel so stupid." She shook her head. "You're not stupid. He lied, he covered things up. That's on him. You just believed the person you loved." "So," I nodded, tears pricking at my eyes again. I wish the suitcase never showed up at that woman's apartment. Because if it hadn't, maybe I'd still be oblivious, living a normal life. Living a lie," she pointed out softly. "This way, at least you know the truth." That comment stung, but it was true. I realized if not for that bizarre shipping error, he might have gotten away with it indefinitely. Or maybe he would have ended it quietly and I'd never know. That thought left me with an odd, hollow ache. In the days that followed, Mark tried desperately to prove he'd cut off contact with Tracy. He sent me screenshots of messages where he told her it was over, that he regretted the entire thing, that he was going to fight for his marriage. I confronted Tracy myself, texting her once more. She confirmed he'd told her it was finished, and she apologized again for her role in the mess. I couldn't muster up the energy to be furious with her anymore. My anger was mostly directed at Mark. Eventually, I agreed to speak with a marriage counselor, more out of curiosity than hope. The sessions were brutal. Lots of tears, painful confessions, rehashing old resentments. Mark admitted that he'd kept quiet about his dissatisfaction, choosing deception over confrontation. I unleashed how betrayed and foolish I felt, how the trust was shattered. The counselor tried to guide us to see if there was any path to repair. At first, I was convinced I'd never look at him the same way again, but part of me still felt love for him, or at least for who he used to be. During this period, I told Dana, my sister, that I was considering separation. She supported me no matter what, though she also encouraged me to be certain I wasn't acting purely out of wounded pride. "You know yourself best," she said, "and if you truly can't forgive, that's okay. But if you think the marriage was good enough to save before, you might not want to toss it away without seeing if it can be rebuilt." That stung, because I didn't know if I could handle the mental image of him sneaking around. Even if we reconciled, how could I stop those thoughts from creeping in whenever he worked late or went on a trip? Still, Mark kept showing up. He ended his hotel stay and moved in with a friend to give me space, yet made sure I saw every step he took toward accountability, whether it was turning over his phone records, deleting certain contacts, or reading books on regaining trust. It felt overwhelming but also oddly reassuring. He was actively trying to fix what he'd broken, though I had no idea if that was possible. I won't pretend it was romantic or uplifting. It was messy. Some days I'd feel a spark of hope, Like maybe we could find our way back, and then, the next day, I'd be furious again. If I found a photo that reminded me of his lies, or scrolled through messages I'd discovered, the wound felt raw all over again. The suitcase, ironically, sat in the corner of my closet for a while. I didn't want to look at it or the items inside. It felt like a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. One afternoon, in a fit of anger, I pulled it out and rifled through it, finding receipts, random travel brochures, and a hidden pocket with a small gift, a silver bracelet. I realized it definitely wasn't for me, since Mark had never mentioned a gift. I broke down sobbing. He'd probably bought it for Tracy. I took a picture of it and sent it to Mark with a single question mark. He wrote back an agonized apology, saying he'd planned to give it to her on some weekend trip. I tossed it in the garbage. Just touching it made me feel sick. Even so, that night, he showed up at the door again, tears in his eyes, pleading with me to talk. Instead of slamming it in his face, I let him in. We ended up talking for hours. That's how it went. A back-and-forth dance between my anger and my longing for the relationship we used to have. Mark opened up about his own insecurities, admitting he felt overshadowed by my career success, that he hated traveling for work but felt trapped, that he was an idiot who got addicted to the thrill of something new. I listened, not sure if it was enough to justify what he'd done. It wasn't, but at least I understood the broken parts that had led him there. Weeks turned into months, and we continued counseling. At one point, I nearly filed for divorce, but the counselor suggested we try a short trial separation first, a chance to see if being apart clarified what we truly wanted. Mark moved back into his friend's place, while I stayed in our house. We split finances temporarily and set rules about contact. Oddly, that arrangement gave me space to breathe, to see if I really missed him or if life was better without him. I did miss him, despite everything. Late at night, I'd lie awake, remembering our early days in college when we'd stay up talking about our future, or the time he surprised me with a trip to Yosemite just because he knew how much I loved hiking. I grieved those memories, wondering if they'd been overshadowed forever by his deceit. Slowly, I started to realize that while I might never forget his betrayal, I didn't necessarily want to wipe away our entire history together. I told him we could try to rebuild if he continued therapy on his own, stayed honest, and gave me full transparency. Mark agreed wholeheartedly, canceling any potential work trips unless we both discussed them in counseling first. He even offered to let me review everything from his phone to his emails. Part of me hated the idea of having to police him, but at least he was trying to prove he wouldn't lie again. Over time, I discovered that healing didn't come all at once. Some days, I doubted my decision to keep him in my life. Other days, I felt a tentative closeness forming between us again. There were moments we laughed, or when he said something sweet, and I caught a glimpse of the man I married. What truly changed the tide was when he reached out to my sister Dana and asked for her help in planning a small gesture, a vow renewal of sorts. He wanted to stand before me and promise, face to face, that he was done lying. I was wary at first, but something inside me wanted to hear it. He gathered me, Dana, and a few close friends in a local park. In a trembling voice, he apologized, stated his failings, and pledged to be fully transparent and honest if I'd let him stay in my life. I cried the entire time, not sure if my tears were from sadness or a fragile kind of hope. Rebecca squeezed my hand, tears in her own eyes. The heartbreak was still there, but seeing him vulnerable and open in front of our loved ones touched something in me. I told him I wasn't ready to pretend everything was fine, but I was willing to keep trying. We're still a work in progress. Even as I write this, there are moments I wake up terrified I'll find another missing suitcase fiasco. That fear doesn't vanish overnight. But we're in therapy, both together and individually. He's done everything I've asked. Cut off contact with Tracy, no secrets, no hidden social accounts, no unplanned trips. We talk more openly now than we ever did before. I wish it hadn't taken such a painful explosion for us to reach this level of honesty. Some nights, I recall how close I was to never learning the truth. If that courier hadn't shown up at Tracy's door in the middle of the night, if she hadn't discovered my phone number, I might never have known. Mark might have kept living a lie or ended the affair quietly, carrying that secret for the rest of our marriage. Part of me is grateful for that so-called mistake, because as horrible as it's been, at least now we're dealing with reality. Another part of me is still furious he let it get to that point. Healing is complicated. We don't know exactly what the future looks like. But at least now we're on a path that's grounded in truth. Some people might say I'm a fool for staying with him after what he did. Maybe they're right, but I'm determined to figure out if this love can be salvaged. If not, at least I'll know I tried. I sometimes catch myself staring at that once-lost suitcase in the corner of our closet, the same one that turned my world upside down. It's just an object. Fabric, zippers, a handle. But in a weird way, it represents the crossroads of my life. The moment I realized everything I thought I knew had been built on quicksand. Now, I'm trying to build something sturdier. Whether that's with Mark or on my own remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. I'll never again ignore the signs, the red flags, or the uneasy gut feelings. And I'll never believe another missing luggage story without double-checking the address myself.